Okay, guys, we are back, and we want to welcome YouTube and Instagram and Facebook. And this is my last segment. And if you are on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook, I encourage you to check out Podbean or iHeartRadio. You can find my podcast on there. Just type in Michael Spann, and I don't know, maybe there was. So interestingly enough, the first casualty of the War on Terror back in 2001, I believe, was a CIA operative named Johnny Michael Spann, but he was known as Michael Spann. So if you type in Michael Spann, he's probably the one who may show up. I remember, it's funny, I remember my freshman year Spanish teacher, Ivor Wilson is his name. I believe Senor is still living and thriving. Great man, great man. But he told me, as a matter of fact, that Johnny Michael Spann was the first casualty. Anyway, kind of interesting story. You can look it up too. His life, I think, is worth remembering for sure. So, all right, so we're going to close up. This will be, won't be as long as the first two segments, so I appreciate you guys tuning in. Basically, what I want to end on today is we have, guys, a moral responsibility to resist evil wherever it's lurking. And interestingly enough, we talked about in previous segments some of the upheaval we saw specifically that was completely ginned up and artificially created in 2022 swinging election, right? To pit people against President Trump and those who supported him, and then to create this perception that those people, those politicians specifically on the left, were the ones to trust as the solvers of these issues. It's just that's what happened, okay? And if you want to listen to more of that in the first two segments, I encourage you to do that. So anyway, it's our moral responsibility to resist evil. And if you look at those, for example, those violent protests, okay, that completely, most of those people, guys, which is just true, as I mentioned, were paid protesters, were given money to go and protest. But even some of those who weren't, and you see a lot of these on college campuses, people who are protesting, who are they? And so if you're protesting, we live in a democratic republic. A democratic republic means we, the people, get to elect who we want to put in office, and that's how our voices are heard, okay? It's very fundamental, okay? So if we put those people in office, congressmen, senators, the president, we vote to put them in office because we want them to reflect our ideals, okay? That's just the truth. And so when you think about how it was ginned up and how it was artificially created, we understand that those people, okay, and this is a statistic, I want to read to you guys. So 69.1% of the population were registered to vote, I believe, in 2022 during the congressional races. I believe these dates are correct, okay? And of those people, only 52.2% turned out to vote. So you got to think about this. So 69%, which isn't bad, honestly. I thought that was higher than, but only 52% of the 69% of the registered voters actually went out and casted a vote. Now, when you think about those who are causing a lot of the upheaval, a lot of the violent protests, quote unquote, because they were really aggrieved with issues that were concerning, okay? The 18 to 29 age group, which I would say most of those people fall within that quadrant, okay? 7.9% of those people actually voted. So what are you protesting? You're protesting for people, our leaders, to legislate, or right now, one of the biggest things is, and this is how the administrative state grows. When I say the administrative state, I'm meaning people who are unelected, who are called bureaucrats. They make laws that totally violate our Constitution. Laws come from Congress. Congress has the power to legislate. That is where the power is to legislate. And then the president signs it into law. And that's a different topic of conversation. But no, we're protesting people who they didn't even vote for and who won't vote. So again, big contradiction, right? Okay, I'm just trying to juxtapose those people who protest, quote unquote, grievances, and they're protesting and trying to appeal to people they didn't even vote for, and they're not going to vote for. And so it's interesting. But I want to talk to you guys to exhort and to encourage, be invested. I know politics can be so, just off-putting. And a lot of times people don't want anything to do with it because it gets so nasty. And our hope is not in politics. But what I can say is God has given us the opportunity to be in America and wherever you live. I pray that wherever you live, if you're watching this, I know I've connected with people all across the world. The last 5 years I've done YouTube stuff and whatever, and it's been really neat to have that connection. But wherever you live, if you have the ability to cast a vote to move people, I talked in my first segment about El Salvador. El Salvador, I mentioned this in my first segment, was the most dangerous nation on the planet. And within years, their president, who sought the face of God, and he talks about this, I encourage you to watch his interview with Tucker Carlson. It's awesome. He said, we sought the face of God. They cleaned up the country. They are now the safest nation in the Western Hemisphere. And they cleaned that nation up. And guess what? They have voted. That guy was elected even during the most corrupt, maybe the most corrupt, certainly the most dangerous nation. At one point, he was still elected and put into office. So again, the power lies with us. The power lies with us. And here's another thing. The media, politicians wouldn't try to spin narratives and try to persuade us and galvanize support if we didn't have power. I say this in my second segment on this podcast. They just wouldn't say anything at all if we didn't matter. They wouldn't lie to us. So the fact they're lying to us, the fact they're trying to spin narratives, mean that we matter. Our voice matters. So be invested, be plugged in, okay? And at the very least, pray. The El Salvador's president, his name is, let me make sure I say it right, Bukele, President Bukele. Look at his story. It's awesome, man. They cleaned up the street. They imprisoned 70,000 MST gang members. Look at that story. He sought the face of God. He sought wisdom. So that is the battle of spiritual, but be engaged, okay? Don't be disengaged. And lastly, subscribe to this channel if you haven't. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me, and you all have a blessed rest of your weekend. And I will be back soon, probably in the next few days. Thanks again, guys. Take care.